7:47 now. We're going to look at Tesco now. Of course, always worth remembering, still UK's biggest supermarket. They've announced the figures out today, and it's always important, isn't it, in terms of the marketplace?
Yes, it is, because as you say, UK's biggest supermarket. Let me tell you what the details are this morning. Morning, everyone. Yeah, after a tough few years, Tesco's back on course, announcing a rise in profits and sales. Joe Goyder is from the retail consultancy Butterfly is here to look at the figures. We've printed them off, haven't we? With always a lengthy document whenever you're looking at these. Sure. But just give us the headlines from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting news. What we're seeing is continued growth from Tesco.
Yeah, and in terms of that growth, where's it coming from? Because it's been a really tough time, hasn't it, for the supermarkets?
Yeah, the British grocery industry is having a tough time. It's being disrupted by discounters, inflation and the move to online shopping, so changing shopping habits for the British consumer. But Tesco seem to be doing a good job of handling that. That's partly top line. They've introduced things like farm brands, which helps them compete against the discounters. But also, I think they've been working very hard with their suppliers to keep costs down. So we're seeing inflation within Tesco somewhat lower than the market average at the moment.
Yeah, because that's what was interesting when I was looking through the figures earlier, is the fact that they're saying because food price inflation is something I've been talking a lot about because of the currency markets and the fact we import a lot of food. And they're saying they're actually 1% lower compared to the rest of the market. So how have they been able to do that?
So what they talk about is working in partnership with suppliers to set long-term plans and, I guess, talk to them about the volumes they get by maintaining their prices. Tesco have a famously determined purchasing team, and no doubt they've been putting pressure on suppliers to keep costs down.
So it means the suppliers are inevitably taking the hit in some of this?
Yeah, and I guess that's the big question, is how long they can continue to keep their costs lower than that of the competition and therefore reap the benefits of being more competitive.
The other thing as well is they mentioned in there about not doing as many promotions, so as many multi-buy offers. What kind of difference does that make, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a change from the previous management at Tesco, who were very growth-driven and therefore very promotionally driven. It feels like this new regime is more interested in long-term profits, and I guess also reflecting the business models of the discounters that tend to go for a more everyday low price rather than chasing big promotions.
And often over the last few years, when we've talked about the supermarkets, we've talked about how well Aldi and Lidl have been doing, but they're still tiny, aren't they, in comparison to the weight of Tesco?
Well, I think that's beginning to change. We've seen Aldi and Lidl beginning to overtake the smaller competitors, so Co-op and Waitrose particularly. So while they are considerably smaller, they're still growing double-digit, and they're really beginning to creep up on the big four.
And just looking at the overall sector, what do you think is going to happen with prices in the future? Because given what we've seen with the currency markets and the fact that the pound is weak compared to the euro and the dollar at the moment?
I think it's going to be tricky to predict, because on one hand we've got inflation partly because of Brexit. On the other hand, the British consumer is working extremely hard in full employment but not earning quite enough money to get by in the way they'd like to. So it's a bit of a clash between rising prices but quite low consumer incomes.
Yeah, interesting. Joe, thank you very much for your time on all of that this morning. I really appreciate it. That's it for me for now.
Thank you.